This podcast is an expression of the personal views and opinions of the hosts and guests, and they do not represent the official stance of the podcast, its sponsors, or affiliated organizations. The podcast may cover topics such as drugs, mental illness, politics, and religion, which can be controversial or sensitive. The podcast does not support any illegal activities and advises listeners to seek help from appropriate professionals for any personal concerns related to these topics. The information provided in the podcast is for general informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for professional advice. Listeners are urged to consult with a qualified healthcare professional for any questions regarding their mental or physical health. The podcast and its creators are not responsible for any loss or harm resulting from the use or reliance on the information provided in the podcast.
Turn my mic up.
Let's get it on.
What's up, Street Stoics, and welcome back to part 2 of our episode around technology. So we kind of got into it, a little unscripted, back and forth, what we thought about it. And this episode, we've asked ChatGPT to give us some lists that we're going to go through. So we're going to go through the list, and it's just going to be kind of like open mic. We're just going to talk about it. There's going to be pros and cons to everything, just see where we land. What do you guys think?
That sounds good. I like that format.
That sounds good to me.
All right. So over here on ChatGPT. So the prompt with ChatGPT, and try to make it fit in this episode, I prompted it to give me a list of 5 most popular forms of modern day technology. I kept the list at 5. I think everybody's going to see why, because they're kind of broad, and we'll just go through them one by one. So, just before we get into this, I want everybody to know ChatGPT, at least the free version that I have, I believe the time frame that it stopped retaining information or gathering more information was the end of 2021. So 2022 on, any changes that came about since then, ChatGPT is not going to be able to incorporate that. So we're just going to work with what we got, which I think will still be relevant because they're kind of broad topics. So the list of top 5 things that are most popular: smartphones. Right? Everybody's got a smartphone. One of the biggest things around smartphones, at least something that I've seen in class, and I think maybe Mike has seen in class, and I know Jay's probably talked about it at work and with other people on the internet, whatever, just in passing. But I think with smartphones, there's a debate right now, and it's Android or iPhone. So before we move on or add anything, we got to ask so everybody knows. No? Don't ask?
Yeah, we're gonna do it, but I already hate this topic because I think it's so stupid.
Okay.
I think that whole iPhone cult shit where everybody is like, it's all about iPhone. I hate that shit, man. And so yeah, I roll with Androids.
Oh, you roll with Androids. And then everybody's going to want to know why. What's your personal reason why?
Yeah, I've been an Android guy ever since the first G1.
Okay. So it's just like a brand loyalty thing?
Yeah, in a sense. In a sense it is, because of the practicality of things. So just like and I understand why people go to iPhone and why they get pretty much engulfed with everything that is Apple. So what is the word? The seamlessness that you can pretty much go from your phone to your tablet to your laptop. I understand all of that.
Yeah.
So it's great. For me, I started off with an Android back in like 2005 with the G1, the first Android that came out. And since then, it's just been that. And I think it's probably because it's Google and everything that I've had, it has always been Google as far as my calendars, my emails, my everything, right? So I found it just more practical and easier once information was retained
Yeah.
on that account that I could just transfer everything over. I hated the fact that because I was the guy who would go from one phone to the other every like year or two. So I dreaded having to
Ooh,
take
20
all the
years
contacts
ago.
from one
Yeah.
phone and then having to put it into the other one by one because that's how things used to be almost 20 years ago. So that the fact that you're able to just transfer everything over because of your email. So yeah, that's why I stuck with Android.
All right, dude, that makes sense, man. That makes sense. And I'm sure you got a lot of support on that side. There's tons of people who love Android. I'm sure there's some people like, oh, F this,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. We're just trying to have a little bit of fun here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people like to say that the open source and the ability to do a bunch of things on the phone because of the app store being open. It's cool because you do get introduced to a bunch of different types of programs and apps that you're able to do that you definitely wouldn't be able to do on an iPhone. So I've taken advantage of stuff like that. So it's cool. It's beneficial
Yeah, and that makes sense,
and
man.
better quality cameras.
Yeah, dude, I think that's right. Though iPhone kind of seems to be noted as like one of the revolutionary brands around the like that seamless interface. It doesn't matter if you have the phone, the iPad when they were still, or iPod, I mean, when they were selling those, to your tablet, to your iMac computer, is kind of all seamless. But as soon as that hit the market, the other groups started using it as competition, and like Jay was saying, I believe that's called like cloud computing or whatever, and it makes it more seamless. So it is what it is.
One thing I must say, and that's just to cover my ass here, I appreciate all of you that are listening to us on Apple Music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, Mike, iPhone or Android?
So currently, I have an iPhone. Uh, I did have an Android for a long time. Uh, and also, I just want to say that I grew up in the age of payphones. So for me, for me, um, a cell phone, I just need it to work.
Yeah.
So uh, I had an Android. I had an Android when I met my wife. I couldn't get that to work. And I would hand it to her, and she'd be like, "I don't know how this works." So I switched to an iPhone, so I could use her for technical support.
Yeah,
um,
buddy.
so I do have to say though, I do enjoy the iPhone, the texting in it, because I think you can. There's a lot more that you can do with other iPhone users with replying to
Oh, right.
comments, and it makes group texts quite a bit better. Um, I do miss some of the stuff with the Android, like Jay was talking about the open apps. You do have a lot more stuff available. Um, but for me, it's just being able to get it to work when I need it to work.
Yeah.
So um, that's why I have an iPhone.
Yeah, for sure. You know, on that note, well, I guess not that note, but a different note that sparked my interest is you said the age of the payphones. And what's funny is I don't remember. Somebody sent me a video, and it was like an interview with some famous people that I didn't recognize, probably because I'm old now. And they were like, "Hey, what age or what year is considered old?" And these dudes were like, 1999 and older is old and all this. And I was like, dang. So, anyways, your thing about payphones, it made me start thinking like, you don't see a whole lot of payphones around
Nope.
anymore. I think they're kind of a thing in the past. And actually, right, the job that Jay and I used to have together, when we did have a job together, there was an area in the lobby that used to host, I think it was like 5 or 6 payphones. That way employees could call their house or whatever, their landline. And when we got there, I don't know, I got there in 2014. I don't remember when Jay got there, like 2016, 2015, something like that, Jay.
2016.
Yeah. And by that time, those payphones were out of there. But guess what? They still had the phone book attachment. So it has this like cord thing, and the phone book would just hang down below the actual phone itself. Yeah, remember when you used to have to look up people's phone numbers in the
a phone
book? Yeah, you couldn't just, oh, let me see here. What's my contact list, you know? I mean, now you can just Google anybody's name, probably get a phone number because it's all crazy, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But yeah, I mean, man, that was the day. Payphones. I remember you had to carry 25 cents for the bus and 25 cents in case you got into some shit and you had to call somebody. You know,
Right.
50 cents just to communicate and, you know.
Damn, we're really aging us right now, man.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. We're just having fun. Oh, and then for me, iPhone versus Android. You know, when I first got into cell phones, you know, they had like the Motorola, whatever. They didn't have the smart technology. And then the first phone I got was Android because I got it for a cheap price. My dad, you know, was the one to pay for it. And then he got through his work. It was an Android. And I love that thing. I had no reason to switch. And yeah, finally, you know, back in the day when you used to sign up with cell phone services, if you signed a contract of service for like a year or 2 years, whatever that was, they used to give you a free phone. And so I would take, and there was only a few options. It wasn't like every phone that they had to offer was free with the contract. So it was whatever they were promoting. It was a marketing technique, and it was pretty good. And so at the time, you know, I was just getting whatever free phone there was that was like in or cool. And, you know, a lot of that happened to be Motorola because they were a big company. They were into marketing, stuff like that. And then finally, you know, I learned about this iPhone stuff, and I was like, man, I remember I used to have an iPod. You could put music on there. Yeah, you could put music. And that's what made me finally switch because enough people had iPhones that were in my circle that I just got one, not necessarily to fit in, but to like understand, you know, the, like Mike was talking about, the whole text thing, because, you know, like Android and Google phone, I don't know. So don't quote me if I'm wrong. All you tech geniuses out there, you know, we love you, but I don't know that stuff as well as you do. And I know that those companies are starting to come up with their own version of the, you know, text, being able to like things and group text and respond to specific message bubbles or whatever the heck they are. And so there's a little bit more play, but still, because the two companies are competing with each other, they kind of butt heads. And so, you know, this iPhone, I'm always the last guy to get an iPhone by the time that I see that there's some sort of deal, because they don't do the contract thing anymore. They'll say, hey, if you sign up for service, a new service, you can get this iPhone if you trade in your discount, or this Android phone, if you trade it in, you get a discount. And by the time I hear of that, my iPhone's so old, they won't give me $1 because, you know, they're like, dude, there's nothing we can do with that phone anymore. You know, it's ancient. And they're like, what iPhone do you have? And I'm like, I don't know. And I pull up my phone and I'm like, you know, one finger. And I'm like looking for it. And then they take it away from me. And they're like, oh, dude, you got an iPhone 1 or whatever. I don't, but, you know, they tell me it's old. And I'm like, what number are you on now? And they're like, it's like the Fast and the Furious movies, dude. They're like, yeah, we're on iPhone 27. And I'm like, where the hell was the other numbers in between 1 and 27? They're like, they were there, but you just weren't there to catch it. And so, you know, it's the same reason why I stopped watching Fast and Furious after Tokyo Drift. I mean, I kind of got lost. So I'm an iPhone guy just because it's what I got. Enough of my friends got the message things. And, you know, like, I'm a little bit in support of Apple and I'm a little bit not in support of Apple. I had to study them going to business school. And, you know, they had some cool ideas and stuff. And I think there's pros and cons, all that. And it just is what it is. I think now it's just because I'm lazy. and I know how to use an iPhone. I remember when I first switched to Android, I was like, how the hell do you use this thing? And then I switched from Android to iPhone, and I was like, this is like alien technology to me. Did they get this out of a UFO? And so now that I'm familiarized with this alien technology known as, this iOS or whatever the heck the iPhone calls it, I don't think I could switch back, man. I think if I went back to Android, I'd be completely lost. And I know I've told people, and they're like, "Yeah, well, dude, it's easy. All you gotta do is this, and that." And I'm like, "Man, you don't understand how lazy I am, because I am lazy." And with this technology thing, that's where I'm lazy. And I tell them that they're mistaking me. They're mistaking me for somebody that cares to switch my phone when I've been using this one. And I just thought about that statement. Now I'm dating myself. So I think maybe we should move on unless you guys got other things to say. I sound like a grandpa, dude. Oh, this one works fine. I don't need a new one, Sean. Jesus.
Yeah.
That came out live and natural. I'm glad we caught that. All right.
Lately, that's kind of how I've been feeling with kind of just seeing things on social media and stuff. And then when I kind of see some of the things that some of these kids are saying, and I'm like, oh shit, that's right. They're like 20 years younger than me. I'm fucking almost 40. Holy shit. Where did the time go? So
Yeah.
yeah, we've seen
Yep.
the growth of a lot of this technology, and so that's
I am
kind of
40.
why
Holy shit.
that's we're that generation that was at least able to experience life before a lot of the boom of this technology. So when it comes to some of the things that we're probably going to be saying, it's because we have that experience of having lived without it for some time and having been able to live without it and be able to still pretty much be happy in our sense. So we have an understanding of what life used to be before. It was a thing that you had to have, or you feel like you have to have, or you can't do certain things.
Without a doubt, man. All right, so we talked about smartphones. We might have to make this a 3-part episode, guys, because this is only a list of 5, and I think we're what 17 minutes into this episode. We got it. All right. So top 5 smartphone. Next on the list is laptops and personal computers. What you guys think? Laptops and personal computers? I'd agree that's pretty popular.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody seems to have a computer of some sort at home, and
Yeah, I've got one.
that you kind of have to, or it feels like you have to have one at
Right.
home, at least one for the whole house.
Right? You remember back in the day when your family or somebody in your neighborhood's family, they got a computer in their house, and you were so excited. You go over there, and that thing's like almost half as big as your television if you had a television, and that thing was huge, and it wasn't a common thing to have the computer in your household. And there was all these other devices. You had the towers. IBM was running the market, that and Mac, they were fighting head to head, and they were like, yeah, dude, we got the coolest thing. And then I remember Mac put the computer tower, but it was in the monitor of that tube monitor thing. And so they're like, oh, ours takes up less space. Oh man. Oh, Jay, what you got, bro?
I had a compact Presario. Remember that brand, Compact?
Oh, hold on. Is that? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I do remember that brand. Yep. Dude, but yeah, compact Presario is huge, and I think we're being interrupted by what is called a landline phone ringing. Mike, would you be able to confirm that you have a landline phone inside of your house?
Yeah, it's the old guy that's talking about payphones. That's landline is going off. I tried to mute.
Oh man! So, folks out there who don't know what a landline is, back in a long time ago when Mike was hanging around with Jesus and all the ancients, They had these things that were phones, and they weren't small like this. They were kind of big, and they had a wire, and the wire was hooked up to another wire that went under your house, and all those power lines. You see, some of them were telephone wires, and that's how you called each other. Oh, look
Looks
Mike's
something like
got a
that.
display. There we
Yeah.
go. That's right.
Yeah.
Landline.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? The good thing about landlines was you didn't need power to use it.
Nope.
Until they came out with those wireless headsets or the wireless handheld. If you had just a regular Bell landline, Bell was the brand of the landlines at the time, you could pick that thing up, pure blackout, no power on the grid, and you could call and talk to each other. That was awesome. That was awesome. Until somebody knocked down a power line that also had the telephone line on it, and then you couldn't call nobody. The same thing.
Yeah, we were all screwed.
Yep. All right, so we're talking about IBMs, we're talking about Macs, we're talking about compact Basarios, and like it was like cell phones, man. Remember, cell phones were huge, and then they got small. They got real small until they were like, "That's a bad idea." People were losing them. Then they got big, and then like now I've got issued an iPhone at my new job, and it's like an iPhone 12 or whatever, 13. And it's so big, like my thumb doesn't even cross over the entire screen. And I'm like, dude, big is back. I guess you want to be talking on a tablet on the side of your face, something like that. And computers kind of went through that too, because when they first arrived, they were huge. They had to house all those things and not overheat. And then we got better with technology. They got smaller, and then they got bigger. And then now it depends on who you talk to. I think laptops, because of technology advancements, are really coming through that, like personal computing market. Because, all right, guys, sorry about that. We had a little technical issue on our episode of technology. So not only did we get the landline, but we got the technology connectivity issues. Anyways, we're back. We were talking about personal computing. I kind of went into, the computers were big, then small, and all this stuff. Now we're kind of using laptops because of the technology that's surrounding them. Tablets are kind of taking over too. It's just what's popular right now. Like laptops back in the day, they used to be this like briefcase style thing you had to open up and plug in, do all this stuff. And now they got batteries. Laptops are just about as thin as, almost like a peachy folder. I guess that's also probably dating me. I don't know if a lot of people know what a peachy folder is. But, they're really thin. They got a lot of memory and drive and all that stuff. And, like I said, I'm not a huge technical guy, but that's kind of where it's at. Until you get into the people that use it for, work or gaming, streaming, whatever that is. And those people generally still run, a tower for computing, and those things have way larger processors, way better performance, things like that. All the different monitors, it's come so far, since when we started. It's pretty sweet. And, the other day I was even watching a YouTube video on technology, kind of in preparation for this episode. And it got into quantum computing, and I went down the rabbit hole. I was like, what is quantum computing? And then it brought in atoms and how atoms and, they can pass through things. And it was like super fast. And then it had me like second guessing reality. And I turned the thing off. I was just like, I'll leave quantum computing for the next person, because if you want to learn about that, it's not from me, All right. So we talked about, let's see, laptops and personal computers. Let's see, internet. Yeah, I mean, internet's pretty awesome. We don't have to, use a telephone line to get to it anymore. That, that whole loading thing where it took a half hour before you could get on to the internet. And then once you were on, if you tried to do anything, it took another half hour just to get your search. This is funny. I remember when I was a kid, you're trying to look at an image of a Sports Illustrated cover, right? Chick in a bikini, because you're like, yeah. It's like Beavis and Butthead. And you click on the image, that was like this 4-pixel thing. and you click on it so you can see the full thing, and you got to like go back to the house. You got to go to the store, grab food, drink, walk all the way back from the store to your house, and you might be like halfway loaded. And you're like, oh man, all right, let's play some video games. And it was actually faster to go play video games, which was, the Segas, the Super Nintendos, the N64s. Though we had to blow into the things, which we found out later was not a good idea, but we thought it was back in the day, and put the game back in. We could do that, kill a game, and come back, and then finally our picture was finally uploaded. So now, I mean, with internet service, it's so much faster. People get upset if you click on something and there's any wait time, and I guess that's why they came out with like fiber optic internet is the new thing, which is supposed to be even faster. Security cams, CCTVs, all that stuff are switching to fiber, which makes it like instant feed, live feed, super crystal clear. All this stuff is just, it's crazy. It's crazy what all that stuff can do. And so, I don't know, Mike, what do you got to say about the internet?
Well, I just like how you talked about dial-up internet and trying to watch bikini women on it, and then being half loaded by the time you got there.
Yeah. Hey, you only laugh because you know it's true. You know the hardship.
That's a whole different podcast for a different. We'll have to title a new podcast and talk about that one. Yeah. Earlier, I was talking about being on the on payphones and all that stuff. For me, I was born in 1983, so that was like right on the cusp of the technology boom. So this internet stuff is wild to me, and how dependent we are on it for everything. At home and at work, if the internet's down, nobody can do anything. And it's unreal to me that, you can't pay your bills without the internet. You can't watch TV without the internet. We can't record this podcast without internet. Right. And to me, I think the internet's a great thing. I think it's made the world a smaller place, which is a good thing, and maybe not a good thing in some cases. To me, what scares me about the internet is how dependent we are on it. And if it fails or if it's compromised anyway, we are screwed for everything. And when I say everything, I literally mean everything. We are screwed. But when it works, it's great. So, I'm a little, I guess I'm cautiously glad we have the internet.
Right. Yeah. When it works to our likings and our convenience.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. That sounds like a good response. Jay, internet.
Oh, the good old internet. Yeah, it's definitely one of the greatest things that probably could have happened in our lifetime here. With the internet coming to, I guess I would say, got smaller to the point where then you're able to have it at home. Internet, if for a lot of people, if they don't know the history of the internet, it's been around since almost like World War II, only that it was something that was being used by the governments and the military. So obviously that expanded, and then it got to companies, and then after that, everyone has it at home, and then now we have it, handheld. It's definitely made a lot of things, like Mike said, smaller. The fact that now it's in almost every country, I would say. I guess it's probably in every country. And the way that we are able to now stay connected with other
Almost
individuals and
to some extent.
how we're able to communicate with them is incredible. Well, it's awesome. Um, Definitely one of the perks of just living here, that now that is a thing that we're able to do. You know, you want to talk with somebody on the complete opposite side of this world, and you definitely can somehow, some way, you can find somebody over there and communicate with them. Um, yeah, it's a cool, interesting way of and the thing with the internet and everything else, especially like social media, it's the way that you use it, and I feel that I've always kind of used it for the intentions of communicating with other people, getting to know them, understanding what cultures and life is like in some other part of the world. And there would be no other way except for maybe reading a book in order for me to find that out from afar.
Right. Without traveling.
Yeah.
You used to get the little discs in the mail.
You got mail.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then they came out with the AOL. AOL, Alpha Oscar Lima. They came out with the instant messaging. And I remember, if you were to, if you think about instant messaging now, people don't even correlate the word instant messaging to the messaging systems we use. But it is instant. And back when AOL was throwing around that instant messenger for marketing, they put it out, and instant message wasn't so instant. You might have to wait 20 minutes to get a response.
No.
So, I mean, yeah, man, it was just
Right.
the way it was at the time. And it's phenomenal to see kind of like how it's been revolutionized nowadays, to where, we don't even associate, because if we all text each other, we're all in a text group now. That's how we got this podcast started. That's how we talk about what's going on. We sometimes talk about stuff behind the scenes in our group text, but they're instant. They're probably quicker than the lag time of us communicating in this video, but we don't call it instant messaging. We call it text messaging. And it happens, in the blink of an eye, because we're connected. And it's just crazy. It's crazy to think about that.
Instantly.
All right. So it looks like Jay's still getting some stuff together. Again, just connectivity issues. Y'all remember from previous episodes, he's in a new spot. He's still trying to get it figured out, so just work with us. We're trying to make this happen anyways, and it's all good because this is the episode of technology. All right, and moving on to the next topic. So that was 3 out of the 5. We're working on number 4. Number 4 is cloud computing. Cloud computing. I'm not even sure I know what cloud computing really is. Do you guys know what cloud computing is?
I have no idea. I know that stuff goes into the cloud and it never comes out.
Yeah, it's like whoosh.
Yeah.
And then you try to grab it back, and then you look, you're like, it's
and you
empty.
can't find it. Yeah. Yeah, it just goes into the cloud.
Yep.
Yeah. I know at work we have the OneDrive cloud thing where we're supposed to be able to save stuff. And you'll be working on a night on this project and get it all done, and then go to find it and it's gone. Like, it's just gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you call IT and they're like, hey, have you tried restarting your computer? And you're like, what the hell?
Actually, I have.
No, I never thought of it. Yeah.
Yeah, never thought of that. I understand the premise of the cloud. I understand the premise of it and why it could be a good thing. I've just never experienced it being a good thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, dude, I kind of feel like messing with those people. Have you tried restarting the computers? Like, no, I haven't. How do you do that? You know, like just mess with them,
Yeah.
see what's up. It's kind
Is
of
that the
like,
big red button?
you know, when you get those spam calls.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when you get those scam calls and they're like, hey, we're calling to talk about your computer. And I'm like, oh, okay, who you with? And they're like, you know, Windows, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I don't have a Windows computer. And they're like, oh, it's okay. You can do this from a Macintosh or an Apple computer. And I'm like, but didn't you just say that you're from Windows? And they're
Yeah.
like, yes, but it works on the other one. The scam works, or my Windows
Yeah,
isn't working
yeah.
because I don't have a Windows computer. And
Yeah.
they're like, sir, can you just go to your computer? And I'll be like, sure. And I'm not going to my computer. I'm not lifting my butt up off that couch while they're calling me or, you know, getting out of the car.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you just mess with them and they're like, what the?
Yeah.
You know. So I guess that's a detriment to all that kind of stuff, you know?
Right. Right.
All right. I guarantee Jay probably has a way better understanding than Mike or I do on cloud computing, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do too. But Jay's getting set up with his other jam, and so we're just gonna keep moving on because we got a lot of stuff to cover in this episode. So I'll just read real quickly what ChatGPT put in for cloud computing. It says cloud computing services have become integral for businesses and individuals. They offer storage, computing power, and software applications over the internet, allowing for easy access and scalability. And you know, that actually makes me want to comment on cloud a little bit more. Something that I'm not so happy with these iPhones is, you know, you buy the iPhone, it's got X amount of memory. Okay. Well, when you have kids, family, or you like doing hobbies, whatever, you take a bunch of photos. After a while, you run out of that memory. And so iPhone's high tech, way higher tech than me. And it's like, hey, you wanna buy some cloud storage, some Apple cloud storage or whatever Apple something that it is. And I say, you know, sure, because it's a reasonable price. You get like 200 million gigs for $3. I don't know. I'm just saying numbers. And so I do that. And then it puts all my photos that I love to look at that I took of my family and my hobbies and, you know, my travels. And it puts them on the cloud. And then I'm talking to people. I'm like, hey, they're like, hey, do you have any pictures? I'm like, yeah, dude, let me show you. Or I say, hey, you want to see this cool pic I took? And I go to click on it and it won't load because it doesn't have enough service and it's got to pull it from the cloud. And I'm like, wait, but I took that photo with this device.
Right.
And, you know, like, I get it because they're trying to save you storage, right? It's trying to do all those fantastic things that, you know, ChatGPT kind of generally described. So I understand. At the same time, there's still that frustration of sometimes you don't have the greatest signal. Sometimes you're not in position to where you can load those things and pull them up. And not that that's a huge detriment. And if, you know, a job or something else dependent on it, you know, is more important, you should have backups to that. So I'm not saying don't be prepared or that, you know, this thing doesn't work, because when it does work, it's beautiful. Oftentimes we just experience those frustrations of it not working. You know, we're just outside of service or we're kind of spotty service. We try to pull something up and it doesn't work. And I'm like, hey, you know, I'll click on this video of my kids dancing or whatever the heck it is and show you, but it's got to load. And, you know, who knows how long that's going to take.
Yeah, I think I have a picture in the cloud somewhere of your daughter eating my salsa.
Oh, yep. Yeah, she loves that salsa, man. All right. So the last, number 5 on the list, the last topic here. Social media and networking platforms. And I'll just go ahead and give it the little notations it's got with it. So social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Remember, we don't have any affiliations with these. This is a ChatGPT response, which we also don't have a relationship with ChatGPT. We're just typing prompts in and reading them off to kind of make things relevant. We don't own any rights. It's all in our disclaimer. Instagram and LinkedIn have become integral part of communication and networking for both personal and professional use. And I think, you know, us doing this podcast is kind of one of those examples the social media. I think enough people understand what that is, even the people who choose not to use it, which is kind of cool when you run into those people. For us who are in the stoicism realm and mental health and stuff, you meet those people and you're like, hey, let's have a conversation. Um, but at the same time, they still understand what it is. They just, for whatever reason, choose not to use it. And I think there's both, benefits and um, I can't think of the opposite of benefit. Drawback.
Negatives,
you know,
drawbacks,
there's drawbacks to
detriments.
negatives. Yeah, positives, negatives, detriments, whatever. Either way, there's other things involved in that too. I don't know. What do you think around social media, Mike?
You know, just like with the internet, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with social media. Um, I have lots of family that doesn't live close, and so it's a great way to stay in contact. They can see pictures of the baby and my son,
Yeah,
um, keep up with their events. For that, it's great. Um, although I think I think people can rely on it too much, though, and that becomes their reality. Social media and
mm-hmm.
not interacting, like you're talking about, losing how to have those conversations. I mean, we see it all the time at work, especially when we're training these people, this younger generation that comes in, and they just don't know how to talk to people. Um,
Right.
Not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just the generation, and it's not something that I'm necessarily used to. Um, but like I'm working on right now, getting this Facebook group started for the podcast to help promote the podcast, and for that, it's great. Um, I'm on Facebook Marketplace a lot. It's a great way for people to sell their stuff and make some money, and um,
Yeah.
but there's social media, the platforms, you see it in all of the websites. It's all social media, um, which I think we've become so reliant on it that it's dangerous. Um, because that's where people get their news. That's where people get all the information that they want, and we are relying on that information to be accurate and um, and impartial, so we can make our own decisions. But sometimes it's already made our decisions for us, because
Right.
there's ulterior motives behind the message that's on social media and those websites. Um,
Right.
I'm not saying don't have social media. That's not what I'm saying. I strongly urge people to have some discretion to what one they are putting on social media, and two, the messaging that they're getting off of social media, because it's not always accurate. Whatever end of the spectrum you're on, or whatever your beliefs are, you're always going to be, in today's day and age, you're always going to be able to find information to back what you want. There is no more debating that, because the
Right.
information that's out there, right? You're always going to be able to find some sort of
Yeah.
supporting information, whether it's right or not, to back your argument. And to me,
Right.
I think that's really, really dangerous um, for society. And I think society is
Yeah.
you're seeing those effects in society today.
Ah, so we've gotten pretty much to the part of this whole conversation that I feel that is the biggest, like you guys are, or Mike, you were talking about the new generation, the ones that you guys are training, the younger staff coming into the workforce. Um, I I've kind of had that same interactions as well, like going in some of the leadership roles that I've had in the past, and even currently at the location that I'm working at, you can kind of tell. It's one of those things where I always try to like ask myself the questions like, what's leading up to this particular situation or this particular person being the way that they are, and a lot of them have grown up with all of this, technology. But I think their biggest connection that they have to everyone else is definitely social media. And I think like Nate was talking about, um, certain people make it part of their life as a thing that they need to make sure that they look a certain way on there, that they're following a certain crowd of people, and they make it more kind of like a high school drama, movie where it's about aesthetics, as trying to be involved with certain crowds and trying to look a certain way. Um, that's the most extreme, because I know a lot of people don't use it for that particular reason, but that is something that I definitely have noticed as far as an avenue in social media. Then you have your other avenues, and that's what social media has broken down to, as well as different forms of uh, topics, conversations, interests, hobbies that now, through the help of algorithms, push that type of content directly towards that individual. So now they're just consumed in a certain type of uh, you know content. And I think that's going to continue to affect the progress and the growth of humanity, when what social media is a connections pretty much to our head, our thoughts. What we're doing is communicating our thoughts through our fingers on there. And this is something that we probably have never really been able to do in the past unless we
Mm-hmm.
were able to properly communicate them. And I think
Right.
for at least a
Yeah.
lot of us, and maybe even everyone else in the past, they probably had a hard time communicating some of the thoughts that they had properly. Now we're able to do it easily through a phone. And even then, I think that what maybe our intentions are sometimes when we text aren't being received the same way on the other side, because of whatever circumstances they
Mhm.
interprets, the content of the words, and
Ooh.
they put, I don't know, some
Mm-hmm.
emphasis on the way that they wrote it, or the fact that they didn't include something in there, and it's just like stupid things like that, where people don't put two and two together, that hey, these are just words on a screen or a piece of paper. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the actual intention of what that person was trying to mean. And it's just, we're becoming involved in conflicts over certain things like that, like especially things that are on social media. Um, and I think people have cracked that. They've been able to crack that and know that, hey, we can easily tap into people and be able to
Yep.
manipulate them
Yeah.
into believing certain things just by putting
Yep.
out information on social media. And that's what's scary about it. Yeah. And that's what's scary about this, because like, let's say in the avenue of the conversations that we were having the other day, Mike,
And
about
making
like
it look
war,
legit.
Mm-hmm.
there could be a way where the algorithm maybe won't push that to a certain crowd of people, and they won't be even seeing the images of some of the stuff that are happening out there in the war.
Yep.
And that's something that I'm thinking, well, they could do that with a lot of other things too, where there's certain information that's out there that you won't see
Mm-hmm.
it because the algorithm on your social media is not putting it through, because that's not what interests you. So then how would you ever come across that type of information? So that to me is where I feel that technology has gotten really scary, because
Right.
they can an algorithm can possibly
Mm-hmm.
keep you uninformed of certain things that are happening, because all you
Right.
gravitate towards, because you know it's based on what you like, the amount of time that you spend on a particular picture, a particular video, the times that you like it, the times that you share it. The
Hmm.
algorithms recognizing all of that, and it's developing a way of, okay, this person only likes this type of content, we're going to continue throwing them this type of content. So that's then what you see, stuff that you like. So that's why it becomes an addiction, because you're constantly being bombarded with content that the algorithm knows it's going to continue to keep you engaged.
Right.
And that's scary. That's scary because people aren't recognizing that. They're not realizing that. So they're not breaking that habit. They're not finding,
Mm-hmm.
okay, oh, I got to set some time away from this because it'll consume me. I'll be doing this all day. Or every time I'm bored, I'm just going to pick up my phone and start going through social media because there's nothing to do right now. And that's a habit that develops. So I feel that a lot of this new generation that's coming in is coming in with habits like that. And it's affecting a lot of the way of communication, the way of actual work. And it's an interesting, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't, to me, the way that I see it right now, I see it as I can stand out as a hard worker because of it somehow. And that's all that I'm focusing on. Is just like, I'm just going to have to continue to like to show them that, oh, they can rely on me because I'm a new person to this
Mm-hmm.
company, but I'm also demonstrating that I'm actually doing the work.
Right.
And
Yep.
the crazy thing is that now it feels like the work that you have to demonstrate to do isn't even that hard anymore, because everyone else has already brought it down on the expectations of what you need to be doing, because
Right.
everybody else just can't even get to like half of that as far as the effort. And that's
Yep.
that's that's a scary thought, to know that somehow as a human race we're getting to that. And I
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't say human race because this is not particularly to everyone on the world. People are
Right.
still living out there without the addiction, or without the connectivity that we have with society and people in other locations, and then mimicking the whole celebrity worship, all of that
Right.
stuff. That doesn't exist as much in other places, so things aren't as bad as I think they are in these other places. So it's a it's an odd thing to kind of be able to notice and be able to see people involved in that addiction, and just constantly picking up their phone to check, and just that's how they're dedicating their free time. It's just, let me just open up my phone. And I say that because I also have the experience of having been that type of person. I I would spend every single free time, every single second of my time on my phone, just doing something, looking up something, whatever it is. They're unknowingly, you don't realize these things because it feels good. It's the comfort stuff that we were talking about last week. It brings
Yep.
comfort to you. It brings the entertainment. It brings that pleasure. It's that, that those points, the dopamine that they talk about. Um,
Dopamine.
Yeah. Serotonin. I think, and
mhm.
what you're kind of describing is you're basically making your own echo chamber,
Yeah, that is
right?
the
Like
other
with
thing
all of
too.
those algorithms and yeah.
That is the other thing too that I have noticed, that it is greatly expediting the growth of echo chambers. So
Mm-hmm.
it's where people just want to hang out with their like-minded, and there's no problem with that
Right.
as well, as far as wanting to conversate or be around people that they're like-minded and they're into the same thing. That's great. That's how everyone kind of rolls. We're tribal people as far as the human race. We're all tribes. It's always been that way. Even in smaller countries, there's a split. Everything always ends up getting split, from country to states to cities to towns to parts of towns to streets. It's the people that live on that side of the street. They're different from the people that live on this side of the street. So everything's always kind of at a split. We're all, we're tribal. That's just the way that the human nature is. But now you do it to this point where you don't even want to be open to the other person's opinion,
Yeah.
what their knowledge is, what
Mm-hmm.
their all of the stuff that they have that they understand too, their difference, their perspective of things. And that's where the whole conversation that I had a couple of weeks back where I was talking about perspective, that's where you kind of come into the understanding of these things that, oh, they're different because they had, all of these things happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're different than me because they live in a different location where their environment is this and this, and it's just harder to, grow up or be raised in a particular area and where it's a small town or it's, the bad streets of a urban city or out in the country. Everybody has had a different experience that everyone's going to be different,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean that they're wrong or that they are a bad person because they've lived a different life than you. It's just we've all had different circumstances, and what social media seems to be doing is causing people to just only deal with what they live with, their surroundings. So it doesn't even open them up to, the experience of coming across somebody who has a completely different opinion, a completely different way of thinking. And that's kind of that's scary, obviously, like I said. But it hinders someone's personal growth in experiencing and understanding how much else there is out there. It kind of keeps you pretty much down at one level, and that's all you're going to end up knowing. Just that one world that you decide to revolve around. So with the same people and the same everything, because that's all you want to do. And I've met a lot of people like that. I've met a lot of people already where they tell me like, oh, I've never gone, this, I've only lived here. This is my town or this is my city. I've never moved. I've never lived here or, that's, I mean, certain, I understand people have a whole different way of living, and that's what I understand from perspective. But there is a lot out there to kind of explore, to kind of get to experience, just being able to see differences and be able to come across people with different opinions, different looks, different everything. I guess I'm just open to that just because I know these things, but it helps. It definitely helps to be able to know why other people have a different opinion on things, a different way of living, a different,
For sure.
you name
For
it.
sure.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with social media and what it's causing. As far as the good stuff of it, it's a good way of now being able to keep a small business running, advertising. It's a form of that now, marketing. It just sucks too because it sometimes feels like you're as much as you want to try to progress on that particular app, and that goes with different ones as well. There seems to be an algorithm at play, and you have to mess around with what type of hashtags or what time of the day you're posting, and all of that always seems like it's going against you in when you're trying to become something or you're trying to put out certain content so that it keeps getting attention. It keeps getting people to like or follow you. It just now with these algorithms and the way that they have all this set up with hashtags and you name it, it just seems a lot more difficult for people to be able to get up there on their own without having to just fork out money just for ads.
Right. Mike, you said you
Right.
had something?
Right. And I think that's where stoicism comes into this technology talk. Uh, and we're talking about these echo chambers that these algorithms create and kind of puts you in a comfort zone. And yeah, I agree with all these people, and I'm right because everybody else says, everybody that I'm friends with, or that all the information I'm seeing supports my information. Well, I believe it was Ryan Holiday that wrote a book called "The Obstacle Is the Way." Right? Obstacles are meant to be difficult. Getting out of that echo chamber is the difficult. That's the obstacle, is seeing past that echo chamber and challenging those algorithms and seeing what other people are seeing, and taking their perspective. We're talking about all this technology stuff, and there are so many benefits from our modern technology. But to combat the negative effects, I firmly believe that Stoicism is an excellent tool to combat those negative effects and to challenge those echo chambers and get you out of that comfort zone behind the screen and pick up a book. They still make books. You can buy them on Amazon. Right? So that to me, it seems like a pretty easy fix, but when you've changed the neural pathways in your brain to need the social media and the gratification of getting on and posting and clicking and all that stuff, Stoicism is what's going to train your brain to get out of that mindset and push yourself to see somebody else's perspective from their eyes, not your eyes. So, that to me, that's where the Stoicism comes into this conversation, this technology conversation.
Right, without a doubt. And something that I was thinking about is just how it affects our communication as a whole, right? As a human civilization that inhabits this planet. And real quick, I wanna interrupt this and just say, we're talking a lot about algorithms and echo chambers are bad. Yes, like we are also developing our own echo chamber, so to speak, with this Stoicism podcast.
Very true.
With the communities and social medias at the same thing, something that we're trying to do. And, I know Mike said combat, and I'm not going to argue with that. I like to think about it more as like mitigate the chamber, kind of expand our horizons. Is sure. Okay, sure. But something that we like to do is, just be more open to those other perspectives, right? If something, like we've said it before many times, other people come into the community and they have a different perspective, we're not gonna argue, like we're gonna respect that that's their perspective. We're probably gonna try to understand it a little bit easier. And we're kind of reliant on this new technology, the revolution of algorithms and stuff, because as humans we used to do that, right? Like if you look at the military or government psychological operations, or psyops for those of you who understand it, that's been a thing like forever, right? You just did it a different way. You did it through whatever was the current form of media, and then now, just because we have advanced technology, it's just quicker. And I think we weren't prepared for that. And we weren't really sure on its effects on our communication. And so, getting back into it, I think we kind of have and I'm going to ask you guys for your own opinions too, but I think we kind of have a advantage. The generations of us that grew, and us, meaning the human civilization, that grew up without the technology from day one, we have an advantage because we know what it's like without it. And, like even us three here, we all have different perspectives on what it was without and what it was with, and we had different experiences. And you go back
Yeah, that's
further and further
specifically
and
the
further.
internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, we're all going to have our own advantages and disadvantages. So it's not, that's why I don't like saying the term like positives and negatives, because I feel like those have such heavy, dogmatic, things surrounding them. I just like to point out that there's two sides, and sometimes there's more than two sides to every story. And, we're here to support that 100%. I just real quick before we kind of bridge into the next thing, I kind of wanted to speak about one of my concerns, and I've probably spoke about it before in a way, and then with these two as well. But if you think about it, when I was growing up, they used to say, like if two people got into some sort of argument in their vehicles, that one person would say, "Hey, you're only doing this because you're inside that other car." And it wasn't until those two, people got out of their car to physically handle it. And I'm not condoning that type of behavior, but they knew that that was a factor, right? Like that was one of the next steps. If not, they had to employ some de-escalation techniques and be able to come to some sort of agreement or just agree to disagree. And with what we're seeing now as a human race is that because technology is so advanced, or like to what it is now, because I think we know it's going to go further, because it's so readily available to all of us, it kind of takes that human factor out. So when we do have to have those physical interactions, we're really not set up to do that. It's not a skill within us because we never learned it, right? And we really can't scrutinize people who don't have that skill. We're mad at them for doing something that they don't know. Because they don't know, it doesn't make them a bad person. We've talked about this before. A bad person isn't a bad person because they don't know. That makes them an innocent person, right? I think Jordan Peterson kind of spoke on that. But if these people, they don't have those skills, we can't blame them for that. We have to figure out a way to work with them, and there's probably going to be some improvements we need to make as a society of humans, to improve whatever our communication techniques are, some way to learn these things. I mean, it's fun. Jay in the last episode said he had VR. I was kind of shocked. I was like, dang, dude, that seems high tech, and it's not so high tech anymore. I'm just behind the curve on that. But, when it comes to developing social connections with people meet each other all the time on the internet. And then when they get in real life, it's like they don't know how to interact with each other. And, couples have met on the internet, and then it's like this weird awkwardness. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes, fate kicks in and all that stuff, and it's beautiful. But then other times it's like, I've been speaking to you for X amount of time. Sometimes, I've heard stories of years, more than 1 year. And they meet each other and they're like, I don't know what to do. And that's because they haven't learned that skill. They haven't learned how to communicate with that individual. And so what's scary to me is that it's kind of, in a way, if we eliminate that physical skill, it makes the world kind of more dangerous. It's like, and I'm going to forget the quote right now, so forgive me, but, a civilized mind is dangerous because, there's always going to be the savages that can capitalize them, and vice versa, right? Those are kind of like two different worlds if we're looking at it as from like a binary approach. You have the civilized mind, you have the savage body, and then it's best when you have both. We've done episodes on that, and I might have quoted that, read it off the internet before. At the same time, because we don't have those things, we don't know exactly when things are going to happen. That those things can hinder our situational awareness, right? And I'm sure you guys have seen that too with your coworkers, friends, family, neighbors, whatever. Kind of the generation that grew up without that physical skill of communication. I mean, Jay, remember we would be looking at cameras and we would, and I apologize. We mean nothing by it. We were tired, but we'd be looking at cameras and we're watching people walk into light posts. They walk into a light
Yeah.
post. And we used to joke, like, hey, who put that light post there? It was there the whole time. They just couldn't look up. They didn't know their surroundings, right? And it's
Yep.
because these devices can consume us and we're not privy to that information because we're really not receiving it. And I think that's what the thing that scares me is we want to make sure people are safe and they're taking care of themselves. I mean, what do you guys think?
There definitely is something missing in the factor for communication, which is the whole visual, the actual physical and visual of being in front of somebody in order to kind of pick up on intentions in, just those um those extra things that are missing in the context of, words on a screen or words, however it is that you're reading it from somebody else somewhere else. um that can be always misinterpreted, like I was saying earlier, on a phone. And then there's other things that come with that as well, just kind of being able to know that this person is, feeling well, looking well. Is
Right.
there something going on with them? Are they uncomfortable about something? And I think that that's something that now definitely happens, where we're just like, we're not sure what to say to this person that I have never that I have not seen in, I don't know how many
Yeah.
years or ever sometimes. Um, which is something funny. I was just thinking about that yesterday, how I just came out of working at a place for about 2 years, and I never, I don't remember seeing my boss in person ever. Only that one time when we used to work at another company, and I saw her maybe for like 5 minutes, and that's the person that I was working
Yeah.
for in my
That's
last
wild.
job. It's like, okay, that's just crazy the way things work now in this world, where it's like I have a, direct immediate, supervisor boss, and don't even know what she really looks like recently, because we wouldn't
Right.
even turn cameras on meetings. But it's I'm sure it would be kind of an awkward thing to see someone like in, after however many, if you ever even have met them in person, and for that first time, and just be like, oh yeah, that conversation we had on our phone, remember? It's like I don't know where you would start that if you're missing that, initial immediate, in person, being able to have that touch. That's another thing too that I was actually able to read about last time that I was looking into this information about kids. This is moving away from the social media aspect, but kids who are growing up on technology and aren't really having a lot of conversations or one-on-one play with other kids or other adults, are interacting too much with them because of the amount of time they're on, either video games or social media on the tablet or whatever it is. They're missing out on situation awareness because of it, because they're not having all of that touching, that comes with conversation sometimes. And it's affecting a lot of people. That's, I think, where the problem comes with some of these kids now that are what we call kids, that are the young
Right.
adults and getting into the workforce. uh they're developed like that. They're developing like that because of, how comfortable their upbringing has been with all of these devices, and possibly, their life revolves around it, and there wasn't a lot of outside things, those, instances that we had back in the days, where it's like, oh, you want to
Right.
interact with other kids, you go to the park. um you want to hang out with other kids and make new friends, you
Right.
go do some activity, you join, scouts, you go join a basketball team, you go,
Yeah.
baseball, whatever the sport is, right? You make friends that way. Now, I mean, now it just seems like people are just making, friends online. Oh, it's some
Right.
guys that I game with all the time, and we're friends on there, and it's I don't know, it's a whole different aspect of friendship now because it's just guys that
Right.
online. And to what degree do you have that openness with them where it's like, I'm going to tell them all the things that are going on with me in my life? Do you, does anyone really do that anymore?
Right.
So how are you actually able to have conversations with other people and, be able to tell them like you're down homies pretty much, like the guys that you can tell them anything that's going on with you and they'll just be able to be there and support you and listen to you and just provide you some sort of feedback or just some, words of advice. Do you get that anymore
Right.
from friends online? I wouldn't know because I don't have many of those. I don't think that a lot of people that I've met have just been from people that I've met online, and that's the only way that I have stayed in communications with them. So I don't know. I don't know what that is like now. So I don't know if anyone has even considered or questioned that. But
Right.
people are now missing out on that. So it's like, so what true friendships do you actually keep? Do you have friends? Where's that aspect of things? Or is everybody just an acquaintance? I don't know. Just another one of my observations.
And I think kind of like what it seems to me like you're getting at too is, we often talk about balance, especially here on the podcast, but I like to think of it as like a holistic approach. And when we're building relationships with people, the more holistically we could do that, the easier it is to develop rapport and trust and have a stronger, longer lasting uh, connection with that person. And I don't think in any way we're saying that it's not good. I think that we're just saying we still need to do better understanding and we might still need to add in those other factors. And something, maybe this is an analogy, but something that I thought of is, back when we didn't have this, people were used to, that holistic approach because they met in person, they communicated, they were able to read. And then, yeah, you had letters or landlines and then later internet, all that stuff. But you're able to kind of gauge people from like a, a wider scope and a better filter. Whereas, this is kind of, especially we're specifying it as technology. So, yes, it's our own ecosystem within this episode. Um, but then, as soon as we started to see like the first generations who fully grew up only knowing kind of modern day technology and networking, we saw that it was difficult. And that's kind of what we're talking about with our work because they're closer to us in age, where we try to communicate with these individuals. And, it's this, there's this barrier, right? Like they can't, no eye contact, or it's better if they're looking away. If you're farther distance, they'll accept that communication and developing that relationship. And most recently what I think I've seen, and I don't know this to be true, it's just an observation personally, is that you have even younger generation now coming up and being better at communication skills anyways, and they're so used to how things are now that they develop that sense of trust and rapport through that smaller scope. And so now when I communicate with this younger generation, you talk to older generation, you get the respect right there, right? Because you're face to face, you're a good communicator, you know how to shake a hand, all that stuff. Other the next generation after that, and I'm just generalizing things here. They don't like that physical contact, they don't like that physical approach. And then this newest generation, they're almost just willing to immediately accept you and trust you right off the bat. Like it's so much easier to start a conversation with them. And then next thing you know, they don't have a communication filter because they're so used to being safe from a distance that they're like, oh, I kind of have these skills, so I'm going to bring them forward. And you're like, whoa, slow down. Like you might be telling me too much information about yourself, or like all these things, and you're saying that from a caring standpoint. But that's kind of what I'm seeing now, and I think that's, to me, one of the dangers that I see, if you could call it that. I think we just need some learning, but it's a very interesting thing. Mike, what do you think?
We're talking about lots of generational learning styles here and learning things. And I know for myself, especially at work, I see the same thing where uh, you'll hear or see somebody from the younger generation. You'll compliment them on you're really good at this skill. Maybe you should start thinking about doing this and this area. And then, like you say, like it's just they give you their whole verbal resume right there, like you're gonna hire them.
Right.
And um, I don't I don't think that um, is necessary. We like you said, we do talk a lot about balance. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing that people know what they're good at, um, and they're selling themselves. Like that's what you want in a professional atmosphere. Um, but for me, like seeing their perspective, or from my perspective, I'm like that's weird. Like why are you not so? You need to be more reserved. When in all actuality, they don't have to be more reserved. They're just that's their generation. So I think um, for myself, being more empathetic towards people's perspectives and their generations and learning those generations, I think, um, and how do they communicate. um, it's important in our job. It's important in society, and going to the grocery store. um, as long as we're knowing uh, that everybody is coming from a decent place, it's not anything malice or ill intent. It's
Right.
um, just they're just acting how they know how to act.
Yep.
So I think just being more accepting to um, other people's generational learning skills. I think
Yeah.
that's the big thing.
That's kind of one of the things that I've also have like look. That's just the way that I approach things and how I view things whenever I don't understand why a certain person does a certain thing. It goes back to understanding that this person grew up wherever it is that he grew up with completely different, information, knowledge, and a whole different way of either working or the way that they grasp information. So having that understanding, I don't get as frustrated when I come across people that I just don't understand why they do certain things and why they do it the way that they decide they want to do it. And I guess there is a bit of an empathy with that, where it's just like I'm dealing with somebody who probably for the most part of his life this has worked for him, and that's that's the best that he can do. So just because I have figured out that it's easier to do it or a better way of the better process to do it, this other way, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's just for them, this is the way that things work best. And it's like that for a lot of things. And I think that's why a lot of people have issues, just because of the differences and the way that, somebody goes about getting to the same conclusion or the same results. And it's it's frustrating because it's one of those things where you don't have a control of it. And, that's what this stoicism is all about. It's about understanding that we can't control a lot of things in this, in life. Other people and their actions and the things that they do and the things that they say or the way that they do it, the way that they conduct themselves is out of our control. And what's the point of being frustrated about it if it's not, you're not going to be able to change it. The result is not going to be that, okay, after this frustration, they're going to be able to, because then
Yeah.
you're just setting yourself up just
Yep.
continued frustration that people do this. It's just to live with the understanding that people are like this and that they just exist like this and they're everywhere and it can be even you to somebody else. That's just life.
Yep.
That is just how this is. This whole thing of interacting with other humans is just that's just part of it, because we're all so different. We all have different ways of having learned the same information or very similar things. And just because it's completely different or it's not the exact same way as it is for you or whatever the, particular topic is, it's just things are just like that. And you have no control. Things are just like
Right.
that, and you have no
Yep.
control of
Right.
it. So why get upset?
Without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. Well, I think on this note, we kind of went a little longer on some of these topics than we expected. So I'm pretty sure, like, we educated guessed. That didn't make any sense. We guessed earlier. Now Nate's just making up words. It's all
Hypothesized.
good. Yeah, whatever it is. But just like we had guessed, we're probably gonna have to make this a 3-part episode. So we got into that list of the 5 modern, popular things of technology. Whatever we asked Chat GPT, we got into it. Kind of went into depth about some of the topics. You can see the areas we're more passionate about. If you're passionate about some other areas, got some comments, whatever, please, let us know. Reach out to us. We have multiple ways for you to, kind of communicate with us now. But please reach out. We'd love to share those on the podcast. Give you a shout out, whatever. And if you want to remain anonymous too, we can do it that way as well. But just to kind of get the ball rolling and include everybody in the community with these episodes, I think that's where we'd like to end up eventually. And so, we'll save
Facebook's coming.
part 3.
Facebook's coming.
Yeah, Facebook's coming. We got an Instagram. Jay, kind of made all the Instagram and like I think the TikToks, right, and the YouTube.
Yeah, bit of a hiatus. I'm working my way back in there. I'll start editing and posting stuff again. Probably not as frequent as I did before. I think maybe a couple posts a week. Might be able to go back to doing that. So
Yeah, and we just appreciate everybody's patience because Jay just moved. He started a new job. He's trying to work on that balance himself, as we had talked about in the other podcasts, and that's just part of life, and everybody gets to experience that rawness from it. Hopefully, these episodes are feeling a little bit more realistic, and we can continue that for part 3 of technology. And we'll go into what ChatGPT's next responses were on part 3. So with that said, we look forward to seeing everybody next time.
Adios.
Much love to you.